Stranded in our long boring fly cruise mid-season, the pianist and I decided we were sick to the back teeth of just going into cafes that happened to sell beer. We wanted to find a scuzzy dive bar, one that would remind us of home, a bar that when you walked across the floor you had to put effort into removing your feet from the perpetual sticky floor. We wanted a bar that didn't have flowers on the table, but a bar that you could get away with hurling an ashtray at someone if they pissed you off. A bar that if your arm was laying on a table too long, your sleeve of your jacket or jumper would get welded to it. Finding a place like this was near impossible. It became the impossible dream, just like keeping your woman happy when you've staggered home after a night out and making a racket, waking her up whilst making a late night fried egg sandwich. Near enough impossible. We spent over a month looking around all the various ports on our boring itinerary. And then one day we eventually found one. We were in Napoli, the Italian home of the true Mafia, which is a short ferry ride away from the homeland of Sicily. The corruption of this plagued city was easily apparent. Buildings that were once grand and ornate were now crumbling and caked in graffiti. It also didn't help matters that the city had long given up with its presentation due to Campieflagri, the local supervolcano that could go off at any time. To this day it still hasn't. The city was full of dodgy dealers selling drugs and knockoff goods to tourists. If you wanted a fake Rolex, your fake diamond necklace, your fake designer labelled handbags, Naples was the place to be. Not even the ship security could trust the port security, so once you had your bags put through the port scanners and been given a frisk, you would have to go through the same process as you entered the ship via the gangway. The pianist and I were walking past the Galleria and came to a big church in the corner. I stuck my arm out and stopped the pianist from walking. "Look there, you cunt," I said. The pianist had a big, fat, dirty grin on his face when he noticed what I saw out the corner of his eye. There was a random hole in the wall of this church. This hole had shutters that were open, and around the top of the frame was a fuckload of lemons, all tied together in bunches lining the frame. There was one shitty little table to the right of the hole with no chairs. To the left of the hole was a sign listing the prices of drinks. All I noticed, and would care to notice, was Peroni being sold, a litre bottle for €1.80. That's right, €1.80 for a litre. Now that didn't feel right. Why would it be this price, when everywhere else in Naples, as well as the whole of Italy, was selling the same bottle for €4.50? The pianist and I went up to the guy behind the counter within the hole in the wall of this church, and we placed our order. We were on our second bottle when the pianist tapped me on the shoulder. "Look at this, man," he said as he pointed to a man that's just pulled up on a moped. I looked and watched the moped driver deploy his kickstand. He got off and removed his helmet, then walked over to the barman. The moped driver handed over a big wad of cash and then made a swift exit. The barman didn't bother to count the cash. He just slipped the wad of cash under the counter as though nothing had happened. That there is the third time in the hour we've been here, and the same guy's pulled up on his moped and handed the barman some cash, said the pianist. "No way, man," I said. "I bet you the next 2 rounds that the same guy comes back by the time we finish our next drink," said the pianist. "You're on," I said, as I shook his hand. 20 minutes later, sure enough, the same guy returned. In exactly the same way, he parked up his moped, then went to the bar and handed over another wad of cash. I was slightly pissed off. I hated being wrong as much as losing the bet. The next 2 rounds were on me then. I went up to the bar and got both rounds in at the same time. Some time passed and the pianist and I were starting to notice lots of bizarre things. We saw all the usual petty crime happening across the road, such as pickpockets and the odd mugging, but nothing happened on this stretch of pavement. You didn't even see beggars slumped up in the doorways, but yet across the road they were present. There wasn't even people trying to sell us tourist garbage, but they were present everywhere else. We even noticed a police car pull up and approach the bar, where the barman handed the 2 officers a brown envelope each. The blatant bribery was quite humorous to the pianist and I. We quite enjoyed watching the corruption as it happened, and we had a grandstand with the best view to see it all happening. We went back to the ship vowing that we would come back to this place in 2 weeks' time. 2 weeks later, the pianist and I went back. This time we took some shoppy girls with us, as they didn't believe a word we said. This was going to be funny as fuck. The two shoppy girls were so naive and shielded from the real world, they wouldn't notice most of the blatant things unless it was pointed out to them. Scouse and Belfast followed the pianist and I along the diseased streets of Naples till we reached Mafia bar. I got the first round of 1 litre Peronis in and carried him over to the decrepit table with the best view of corruption. Slowly but surely we noticed the moped pulling up and handing over wages of cash to the bartender. As soon as he made his appearance, I nudged Scouse and directly showed her what was going on. "Here we go," I said. "Look at the moped driver and watch the same guy come back over and over again whilst we're here." Sure as rain, the moped driver returned later on and handed over more cash to the bartender. Over the day we observed more police officers coming up and getting their bribes, as well as more visits from the moped driver. We were on our last drink before we needed to head back to the ship. Then some crackhead-looking skank of a woman came up to us and grabbed the bottle out of Belfast's hand. She yanked the bottle hard and started to neck it as fast as she could. Then in a flash, a man walked up, grabbed the bottle from the crackhead skank and smashed the bottle of Peroni over the woman's head. The crackhead hit the deck like a sack of shit. After a kick to the ribs for good measure, the random man dragged the cowering crackhead along the pavement and out of sight. We were all shocked. What the fuck had just happened? We all looked at each other dumbfounded. Then out of nowhere the bartender came over with a free bottle of Peroni and gave it to Belfast. "I'm sorry about that," he said. "Please take this and come back next time you're here." The bartender walked back over to the bar and we were all stood there, still shocked. This is the most mental thing that has happened in this contract so far. I really didn't know if anything could top this. We all finished our drinks as quickly as possible and we returned to the ship with an unbelievable story to tell everyone.